So around 2 months remain for the start or commencement of the mains examination. And although I've been adopting the habit of sharing with you all the recent developments, I've been doing so in a story mode, but I've been careful enough to discuss the prelims as well as the mains aspect at every junction possible. But now I speculated that it is better for the students to approach a more means oriented scenario to get themselves accustomed. Now, prelims result is already out. So, those who have made through, cracked the prelims still, it's the major step, the major hurdle is still in front of you. That is the mains. And even those who haven't cleared the prelims, it is not a symbol of your failure. Rather, whatever I am going to discuss or whatever I have been discussing through my presentations, through my text, through my handiwork and diagrams and whatnot, they are going to be immensely beneficial even if you are attempting again next year or you are approaching or going to attempt strive for clearing the other examinations. Now, this is, you might say, I have done a similar topic in the past also, but that was oriented more towards GS paper 3, that is the topic of disaster management. I discussed about the glacial lake outburst flood. In my opinion, I am trying to, or I will strive to discuss the most probable topics from the point of view of mains. And since my major subject of expertise is geography, environment, disaster management, I'll try to stick to that. Although a lot of good and interesting happenings have been, taking place in the history and as well as the political science domain. So if we have time or if something interesting comes up or crops up, or if I'm able to frame some decent question, I'll definitely share it with you. But for the time being, we'll stick to it. So from the point of view of disaster management, you can revisit, or if you haven't seen, visit my lecture on GLOF in my playlist, and there I have discussed the mains oriented question as well. But this Hindu Kush Himalayas, now, not only am I going to discuss it from the static part, but also from the dynamic part, and we'll discuss an important question also, because mains answer writing practice is paramount. It is very important for the upcoming mains 2024 and climate change, especially in GS paper 1 syllabus. It not only the geography syllabus does not only talk about the salient features of the physical geography, but also changes in those features, the flora and the fauna. So that is very important. And climate change is now innately associated with our day to day parlance, and we have to study it. So, the recent report, there is an institution known as ICIMOD, ICIMOD. So, basically, ICIMOD. So, it stands for the International Cooperation for Mountain Development. So basically, when we talk about this institution, its main purpose, again, with most of the institutions we have, which these institutions aim at the conservation of resources. But Ikimod also goes beyond that. How it goes? Because we are talking about the human geography aspect and not just the physical geography aspect. So this Ikimod, it does not only aim to involve or encompass various countries together, but it also emphasizes on the sustainable use of genetic resources or the use of flora and fauna for the sustainable development of humans as well, to alleviate property and promote alternative sources of livelihood. So these additional points, you don't have to rant about or blabber about the sustainable development of environment or conservation. You have to be specific in mains about this particular concept. Fine. So this Ikimod recently published this report around about the Hindu Kush Himalayas. Again, the issue is mundane. That is, it is cliched, the melting of glaciers. But when I am teaching you about something, we are going to probe deeper into the finer aspects, which will definitely come in handy while you appear for the mains examination. So this is the topic that we are going to discuss. So we are talking about the Hindu Kush Himalayas. I'll show via the map also. I've drawn it. I've taken the help, and I have from some sites, and I've tried to draw the rivers and stuff themselves, because the images which you find on Google when it comes to geography or disaster management related answers in mains, you should develop a habit of drawing at least one diagram. And when it comes to mapping, the diagrams associated with this HKH region, they are very vague. So I have tried to simplify the same for you. So basically, as the introduction goes, the structure, you already know my way of teaching. We'll discuss what actually this region is, what the report says, why was it in news, the significance, the threats, the initiatives, and finally, when we have to conclude the answer in human geography, normally we give a way forward. So as you can see in the text, they span over 3,500 kilometers in mostly 8 countries, including countries like Myanmar, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, India, China, total of 8 countries, and they are crucial reservoirs or crucial feeder mechanisms of 10 major river systems. I'll show you, like, for example, not only the great rivers of India, that is the Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra, but also the transboundary rivers, that is Amu Darya, Karim River, Irrawaddy River, Salween River, Mekong River, Changjiang River. Changjiang is also known as Yangtze River. Then we have Yellow River. Okay, so we will discuss all this important stuff, and you have to, for example, if you have to give an introduction, because data oriented, a lot of people know, but when it comes, we'll discuss the question also. So I'll emphasize the importance of introduction in there itself, but you have to be innovative. You have to stand apart from the rest of the candidates so that the examiner does not get bored while checking your answer sheets. So, as an introduction, they are not only the water towers. Why are they the water towers? Because they are the feeders for the span across such a large area, and they are the feeders or resources for sustaining the perennial nature of the 10 crucial river systems. Okay, so we'll build upon. So, this is a very important probable topic for mains 24. And not only that, this is also going to be helpful for the point of view of geography optional also. Fine. So this is normally the diagram. These diagrams like these are given on the Google site, but this is not very clear. So if I try to mark here the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, so basically this is actually the border of Pakistan. Then this is Afghanistan, and then we encounter China, and then we have Myanmar. In between, we have Bangladesh also. Okay. So this entire region. So there are some rivers, this Yangtze. So rivers are sometimes mentioned, not mentioned, but the paths are not clear. So I have developed a better diagram with the help of some sources. So you will be better able to understand that diagram. So here you can see I've intentionally not named these. I will name right this right impromptu in front of you. So basically, what you have to understand, this, like, this white portion, this white boundary demarcating or bounding the purple colored, light purple colored portion, that is the entire HKH region. Okay, so I'll first explain to you why it is known as the Hindu Kush Himalayan region and not any other. So this is the thing. So basically, this, now if we concentrate on the ranges, so this range, this is the Hindu Kush range. Fine. Some relatable points. Hindu Kush, you remember Khyber Pass. So one of the major passes in the Hindu Kush, where the Afghan invaders, the Turkish invaders, they use this pass to enter India. Fine. Then we have the Karakoram range, the highest peak of India, K2. Okay, Siachen Glacier, they are located here. Then we have the Himalayas. We know all about it. Some of the highest peaks. So what we have to realize upon the HKH region is that they contain the largest volume of ice content outside the polar areas. and obviously we need melt when the glaciers melt, when the ice melts, so that will feed the rivers or make the rivers perennial, and they it maintains the ecosystem, the biodiversity, the wetlands, the fertile plains, livelihoods for farmers, hydropower, electricity, thermal power. So we'll discuss all these aspects in a proper structure, which will help you remember. Fine. So this, is a mountainous and ice-laden area. So this important range. Can anyone name? This is the Kunlun, Kunlun or Kunlun Shan range in China. Okay, this is the Tian Shan. So here some countries are there. You already know this is Kyrgyzstan. Okay, and this entire is China. Then this is Nanshan range. So these are just certain examples, certain important mountain ranges, which are also important from the point of view of prelims also. But if you have to draw a diagram, a rough diagram to substantiate your answer, means answer, if you're explaining this HKH region, so you should draw some ranges also. Then here is the Purvanchal range, the Patkai, Bam, Naga, Barel, and finally they extend to the Arakan Yoma range in Myanmar. And finally, this just an addition, this Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they are further an extension of this Arakan Yoma range. They are submerged underwater. That is why we cannot see these majority of these fold mountains. Okay. Now we come to the important rivers, the 10 crucial systems. So we know this. This is our great river Ganga. Then this is Brahmaputra or Sangpo. This is Indus. This is Amu which this is the Amu okay, which also meets the Aral Sea, and it is also in the history books. Okay, it is known by the name of Oxus, very important for the civilizations which flourished here. Then this is Tarim River. You can see this basin like structure. It is a dry region and it is low in elevation as compared to the surrounding mountains. It is flat in nature elevation, and here Taklamakan Desert is also situated. Then this is the Huanghe or the Yellow River. Okay, this is the Yellow Sea. This is the lowest plateau. Okay, because these things are interesting. I enjoy the maps. This is the longest river of China. That is the Changjiang or the Yangtze River. Then these are some important rivers in Myanmar. This is the Irrawaddy River, Irrawaddy dolphin. You might have studied in the environment, important species. This is the Salween River. This is the Mekong River. Mekong Ganga Corporation, you have goes through, travels to Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. So this structure should be clear. So this is the importance. So like Changjiang, we know in China, this Changjiang, this Yellow River, most of the civilization has flourished in the eastern part, the agriculture. This is basically dry part. But the river waters, the fertile plains, how are they developing? They are developing because of the ice which is feeding the perennial rivers such as Yellow River and Changjiang. And we know about the Indus Valley civilization, the civilization in Ganga, Patliputra. Okay, then the Brahmaputra. So all these are influenced by whatever changes, even geopolitically also, apart from climate change. So we have to be wary or be aware of those also from the point of view of general studies. Fine. So there was a term in the report of Ikimot. This report said, it quoted a term snow persistence. So how it is different from glaciers? Snow persistence, as it is written, it is the fraction or the amount of time for which the snow is fixed or snow is there above the ground. Okay. Now you have to remember two differences, two different terms. One is the snow persistence and one is the glacier melt. Okay. So both of these terms are different. How? Because obviously you have heard about glacier melts when glaciers are swift moving rivers of or slow, I can say these things are relative. So the glacier melt is also when the water glaciers melt, it feeds the rivers. But more than the glacier melt, the persisting snow, the snow which does not thaw or melt very often, that is the primary source of the river water. Okay, so that contributes a much higher percentage of water source for the rivers as compared to glacier melt. This is an additional point in those that. Then findings of the report: significant fluctuations in snow persistence because of climate change, global warming. We'll discuss in points. Snow persistence, then they are talking about the snow persistence. Again, this term is being repeated. In Ganga, Brahmaputra, and the Indus River, they have drastically fallen. And outside India, Amu Darya or the Oxus River I talked about, the Tarim Basin, and also one important river was mentioned, which is not mentioned here, the Helmand River. Helmand River is a transboundary river which is important for Afghanistan and Iran. And in the past year, it was in the news because of the river water sharing. So problem. So geopolitically also it is very, the water resources have become scarce, and again water sharing between various countries like Indus Water Treaty, even between the states we have a lot of issues or conflicts going on, interstate water disputes. So this geopolitical also, this topic will give you a lot of fodder points for discussing or answering the geopolitical questions of international relations in GS paper 2 as well. Okay, so reasons behind the melting of snow, weekend, some unique points. Now, I told you this global warming, climate change are always common. Okay, they will be discussed time and again. You can go about writing, but again, how will you differentiate your answer from the other candidates who are writing the mains examination? So, weekend western disturbances. This has been in use a lot of time. We had undergone the La Nina season. There are a lot of reasons why these western disturbances have become so erratic and irregular. We did not receive the western disturbances on time this year, and especially it affected the agriculture region of northwest India, Punjab, Haryana. The rabi crops were adversely affected, is rainfall, and obviously in winter seasons we experienced very less temperatures. Then in the February season, we experienced heat wave like conditions because of the lack of western disturbances. I will cover this entire western disturbances, the erraticity and the variation, the fluctuation in a separate lecture because it will cover. So reduced winter precipitation, because obviously why, how the snow is also a form of precipitation. When the condensation takes place to form the water from the water vapor, and when the temperature is below freezing point, then the precipitation occurs as snow, and that snow then accumulates in the form of ice, and it helps in the sustenance and continuation of the formation of glaciers, or what we know as the snow persistence. So if there will be no water, no precipitation, so the amount of snow that will accumulate or form, that will obviously be very less. Okay. Global warming. Now again, you don't have to only restrict yourself about melting glaciers. El Nino and La Nina, the global warming. Now we have entered the La Nina phase. Earlier we'll be in the El Nino phase. So it is good. It is considered good. La Nina is considered good by the IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, for having a bountiful monsoon in the Indian subcontinent. But they have also prolonged and intensified La Nina and El Nino conditions. If you remember, there are terms or phenomena occurring in the upper level circulation, such as jet streams. So this meandering and stalling of the weather circulation patterns, it has intensified dramatically. Climate change, glacier retreat, and changes in the snowfall patterns. So even when quite recently, when the western disturbances became active, we observed snowfall in places like Gulmarg and Manali, which we should have experienced in the December and January regions. So it is connected. All these patterns are connected. Weekend western disturbances, snowfall, climate change. Fine. Growth of invasive species. Now, where did this come from? Now you have to understand, we are considering or we are studying this ecological point of view from both the biotic and abiotic factors. So this is an integrate system in which not only the biotic or the living and the abiotic components, the light, the source of energy, the sun, the lithosphere, hydrosphere, they are also equally important. And the biotic species, if the species, they are invasive species which are not endemic or not suitable for that particular region, if they prosper or they flourish unhindered, like in Netaji Subhash Island, there is a issue of there is an issue of the proliferation of the invasive species known as cheetal. So similarly here, there are purple flowers known as Cercium arvens, the scientific name. Otherwise, they are also known as the creeping thistle. Okay, mats of white clover, Trifolium repens. For example, these are not endemic to the Indian Himalayan system. They are more prominent in the European and the North American season. So now they have become rampant and they are disturbing the ecological balance. Environmental degradation, again, deforestation, overgrazing, unsustainable land use pattern, infrastructure development. So, this is also related to other disasters. Now, we are not talking about disasters singularly or individually, we are talking about multiple or multi hazard disaster events. So, I have a picture to show you this example of this. So these are basically purple flowers and the white clover. Okay, so invasive species are also, they are hampering or disturbing the natural ecological balance, and in turn the snow persistence or the glacier, which ultimately affect the entire HKH region, which act as water towers of Asia. Okay, why is conservation significant? So we now come on the importance. Water security. So, if there is reduced winter precipitation and snowfall, so again, not only for the sustenance of livelihood, not only for the sustenance of the aquaculture for the people, but also the downstream regions. A lot of biodiversity, a lot of flora and fauna, they are sustained by the in the rivers. For example, the Gangetic dolphin. Okay, and here you can also relate some points with the infrastructure. You have to if you have to diversify your answer, and again I've told you in the earlier lectures also, if you are not able to write diversified points, different points, then just scroll over in your mind about the syllabus which exists. So we talked about interwater disputes. We have talking about the drought prone, the parched regions such as Marathwada, Bundelkhand. So river linking, basically we consider Himalayas. We go back to the static drainage portion. Class 11 NCRT, Geography NCRT Part 2. So basic difference between northern and peninsular river, Himalayan rivers, the perennial nature. So already if the water is less, so not only is the water security going to be affected, but also our ambitious projects to supply water, irrigation and sustain agriculture in the parched and drought prone areas such as Bundelkhand, that is also going to be affected. So river linking, some examples you should keep in mind. Then energy security, of course. Here's a stat, some stats you should remember to substantiate your answer. So 33% of country's thermal electricity and 52% of its hydropower. So normally, lot of hydropower you might have studied in the prelims. A lot of examples of hydropower plants in the Himalayan region. Of course, we are not going to discuss the environmental adverse effects of like displacement or, but the security, energy security, we are slowly moving or reducing dependence upon the fossil fuels. So still thermal, it all almost still around 46-47% of the entire country's energy, it depends upon the thermal power plants, and the availability of water is one of the major factors affecting the location of thermal power plants. Related to, again we can link it to GS1 paper, the factors affecting location of industry. Influence on climate, we have time after time and time again we have discussed that the Himalayas, due to its height, they not only prevent the cold and harsh Siberian winds from making the temperature hit the lower extremes, but also they act as an orographic barrier for the Bay of Bengal branch, which comes from the eastern side and brings precipitation to the plain areas, the Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Western UP. So, influence on climate. Then forest wealth, medicinal plant, Ayush. You have heard of Ayush, the Ayurvedic medicine. If I go to the spiritual or mythical world, Sanjeevani Bhuti, Hanumanji carried. Anyways, cultural significance, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. Okay, so if the ice is not there, although I should not be, there are shivlings made of ice. Then Buddhism, lot of monasteries, they have their own. The environment, that is the environment, the cultural significance that has developed in these hilly areas. We cannot expect Buddhism or monasteries to be start flourishing or start propping up in the plain regions. There is a reason why they have been spread. Then biodiversity hotspot, again from the point of view of environment, you might have studied Eastern Himalayan region, like Nilgiri is another example. Eastern Himalayan region, you might have come across this biodiversity hotspot. One important, the flying squirrel. It was asked in the prelims also to help you relate. So these points you can, I've just explained or elaborated, but these points you can keep in mind easily. Okay. Initiatives for conservation, IKIMOD, I've already discussed. Then ecosystem services. This term you will often come across. Not only the physical or abiotic part, but also the livelihood, the culture, the flora and fauna. Okay, the entire ecosystem has to be taken into consideration. Again, initiatives, I've just written the points. I'll explain one or two in one or two lines. So, regional cooperation framework initiated by IKIMOD, and again, the important thing is it focuses on coming together or bringing the various governments together together and take initiatives for sustainable development. And IKIMOD also focuses on harnessing the power or potential of the genetic resources for equal distribution of resources and development of livelihoods to establish or attain the sustainable development goal of reducing poverty. So these additional point you should know. Then Hindu Kush Himalaya assessment. So this is also venture of IKIMOD. So you can, so it again 2019, this was, then this brings out a periodic report about what changes or what climate change, what adversities, what endemic species, what all is happening in that Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Then Secure Himalaya project of the Indian government. So this is actually to fight the wildlife crime, the illegal trade of species, the conservation of species, protecting the important species, protecting the habitat, and it is funded by the GEF or the Global Environment Facility. Fine. National Mission on Sustaining Himalayan Ecosystem. You have been studying this. It is a part of India's National Action Plan on Climate Change, one of the 8 missions. And basically, this aims, the states should be important, are considered to be important. So basically, there are 11 states. It covers 11 states and 2 UTs. So 11 states we have. Can you tell me? Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, the 7 northeastern states, 7 northeastern sisters, and West Bengal. Okay. And 2 UTs, the UTs of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Okay. So you should remember or revise these terms so that you can at least, you cannot just write the points and then go forward. You have to remember the points. Okay, so what is the way forward? So deforestation is a common point. Planting species, CAMPA, the compensatory afforestation and various legislations you can write as examples. Preparing for water stress situation, whether better weather forecasting and various agriculture, sustainable agriculture. Recently in news, you can use this example like this DSR was in new direct seeding of rice, especially in the low rainfall area, low rainfall area like Punjab. So that is again related to GS paper 3, agriculture. Collaboration and community involvement, local, national. These are just general, you can say cliched, but if you write it in points, you distinguish between, your answer will be diversified. And not only this, but the regional transboundary cooperation, which is provided by the institutions or organizations such as ICIMOD. Then lowering emissions, we know, so this I have given an icon of the electric car to mitigate the increasing sea surface and ground temperatures. Okay. So now this is a sample question of 250 words. In 2020, there was a question about the implications or the far reaching impact of the melting glaciers on the water resources of the Indian subcontinent. It was worth 10 marks. It was to be written 150 words. So, this topic again is not obsolete. So, if we try to analyze this question, so you have to first focus on the keyword, examine. Every keyword has a meaning. UPSC does not post or ask write specific keyword just for the sake of it. Examine means we have to probe or examine, we have to delve or study the topic deeply, and then come up with a suitable conclusion about the impact or the way forward. Then there are basically two parts, and the second part has two subparts again. So you have to examine Himalayas role as water tower of Asia. Plenty of points we have already discussed. If you don't want to view the explanation, you can try to attempt the answer, because there is no particular model answer. Each and everyone has his unique approach. So, and its impact on regional climate and biodiversity. So apt examples have to be given. These are the, so this is first part, and this 2a and 2b. So you can devote half points or half word content to both. Again, introduction, everyone has a unique, but don't start like this, like an engineering paper or a board examination paper, that Himalayas are very important because they act as the water towers of Asia. So you can start like this, like I said in one of the lectures, that with the most amount of ice cover outside the polar regions, HKH, the HKH region or the Hindu Kush Himalayas, they are responsible for the flourishing civilizations across Asia and beyond. Okay, so you can start linking. Okay, you don't need to provide heading. So how it is, why are they water towers? Then you can start with some stats, that in and around the Hindu Kush Himalayan regions, they are responsible for sustaining the ecosystem services and providing services and resources for about 240 million people, and then further 1.65 billion people downstream. Fine. Then we can talk about the basic, which we started, that it spans 3,500 kilometers, 8 countries, 10 crucial river systems. Then some points. You have to be clever how to utilize whatever points I have taught you. So 30 energy security, 33% of thermal power, 52% of, or 53% of hydropower. Fine. So role. Then these water towers, they also sustain the biodiversity, the fertile Indo-Gangetic plain, okay, and other wetlands. Then the resources like fisheries, Then you can link some dynamic points like I taught you about the interlinking of rivers, the geopolitical nature like the Helmand River dispute between Iran and Afghanistan. So this is one part. Okay. Then you can start with the second, the impact on regional climate. Fine. So regional climate, some points we have discussed. So this is regional regional climate. So you can write first is the barrier to the cold winds. You can write about the western disturbances, how they help in agriculture. You can talk about the orographic barrier which is provided and sustains the monsoon, setting of the monsoon. Then there are cold winds in the valleys, the microclimates, they help in sustaining orchards of apples and oranges. Okay, they provide temperate or subtropical climate for tourism. So, one or two extra points you can add. Fine. And then, as the second point, you can write about the biodiversity. So you have to give adequate or appropriate examples here. So you can write about the eastern Himalayas biodiversity hotspot. In the regional climates, you can also add one more point that we have a variety. It's not just about mountains and mountains. The vegetation you can talk about. It ranges from the tropical to the alpine vegetation. Okay. We have the deciduous forest, the wet temperate forest, the coniferous forest, and then the meadows, the alpine meadows used for the grazing in Gulmarg, in Uttarakhand. Okay, so eastern hotspot, eastern Ghats, eastern Himalayas hotspot. Then the important species which find refuge or their niche, like pygmy hog, golden langur, Himalayan Thar. So examples also become very important, very essential. Then what else? We can talk about the fertile plains, flourishing agriculture, biodiversity is a component of biodiversity, then wetlands. Just remember one thing, when we are talking about the river systems, we are talking not only about individual river systems, but the basin as a whole. So, if example, this is the Indus River, then we have the five tributaries Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Satluj, and other right and left bank tributaries. So, this entire basin system is important because it is not only feeding the banks of this Indus River. This is feeding or acting as maintenance or provision of ecosystem services in this entire area. Then Ganges and tributaries. What I was talking about, interlinking rivers. So Yamuna is also one of the Himalayan rivers, and it has two important tributaries, Kane and Betwa, linking rivers. Panna Tiger Reserve was in news. So this is how you can. Irrawaddy Basin, the Gangetic Dolphin, Yangtze or Changjiang, Huanghe Yellow River. There is Loess Plateau also here. Tarim Basin, we have already discussed. Amu Darya, meeting the Aral Sea. Okay, Mekong, very important river. The Indochina region it serves. Okay, biodiversity. Then you can write about the migratory species also, birds like demoiselle, crane. Then the heritage site or the biosphere reserve Kangchenjunga. It also exhibits or is famous for migratory species. Fine. So this will easily you can write about 250 words. And finally, when you conclude, now examine, we have probed deeper, but there is a lot of content. So there is no scope for writing negative points as such. But as a conclusion, what you can do, you can write it in a positive, neutral manner that in you can write like this. I'm just creating my own. It is up to you to, but don't just repeat the question or the introduction. So in lieu of the towering, it just came to my mind. So towering challenges posed by climate change, it is essential for local, regional, as well as transboundary cooperation among various different communities. So, in this way, you have concluded both the threat and finally the way forward also. And I've shared enough points in which you can easily write or use those points to vary or modify your answer according to the needs of what the UPSC mains examiner has asked. So this, I hope this has been useful for you. So we'll conclude this session. So if any doubts are there, if you want to attempt that answer in your own way and submit, I'll gladly check it also. So with that, we'll conclude today's session. I hope it was beneficial for you in a lot of ways, a lot of linkages I always try to establish. So with that, we'll conclude. Jai Hind.